adjust your screens. We are back. It is Tuesday night. It is Stoppage Time FC. Scene family. Stoppage Time FC is the group. Our main man, Jamaldo. Behind the scenes, we might bring Jamaldo on camera toward the end of the proceedings. Now that this is going to be his first full season in the wonderful world of football, to get some of his initial thoughts. Shout out to our main man, Zach, taking care of some business. Hopefully we'll have him back in the mix next week. But for now, it's just myself and my main man, Joe. Joe, what's happening?
What's going on, folks? Happy to be back. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been talking some football, kind of letting the Euros and the Copa kind of play its course a little bit until
I feel like it was a much needed break. There wasn't a whole lot going on anyway. I mean, obviously you have the two big tournaments, which we're going to review here, but there wasn't a whole lot going on anyway. So we took a little break, but we back. You know, we are basically a month away from the start of the season in the Premier League. So transfer season is going to be heating up, which we're going to talk about. So Joe, let's get to it, man. You want to start with the Copa America, or you want to start with the Euros? Where you want to go?
I watched all of the Euro finals, so let's go with that one to start off.
Okay. So I didn't watch every single Euro match, but I watched most of it. And my thoughts on the tournament were, I thought it was a really exciting tournament. You know, it wasn't always classic, great technical football, but from an excitement, the intensity of it, I think fans back in the arenas obviously helped. I thought it was a really excellent tournament. What did you think?
I agree. It started off a little bit slow in the group stages. There's a couple of, because I mean that's the case with a lot of big time tournaments when you got some matchups aren't as enticing as others, and like you said, the quality of football might not have been the prettiest to watch at times, but it was definitely exciting. And every one of the knockout rounds I thought was a great matchup. We had some surprises. Denmark getting all the way to the semifinals was a great story, especially after what happened in their opening match with Christian Eriksen going down. So having them make it a long run was really nice. We had several penalty shootouts to decide the who was going to move forward. Some games we had some really free flowing, high scoring games. We had a 5-3 match. We had a couple of high scoring games. So I don't think you can complain at all. I thought it was a very entertaining tournament, good games, and I think the best team throughout the course of the tournament ended up winning. And you can't always say that with tournament style play, but for this particular one, shout outs to Zach, because in our prediction videos we posted in a group, he told everybody that Italy is a one to watch, and said that they were on an unbeaten streak and playing really good football right now. And here we are, them raising the trophy. So it was all in all a great tournament. Props to Italy for being the best team throughout and closing it out in dramatic fashion on Sunday.
They were the better team in the final too.
Yes.
England gets off to the super hot start. They score a goal in under 2 minutes. And I thought from about the half an hour mark on, Italy was the better side for the last 90 minutes. From that 30 minutes to the end of extra time, I thought Italy was the better team. I thought Italy had the better chances. I thought they absolutely dominated England's midfield. If you want to pick a spot where the game was quote unquote won or lost, as a lot of times it is, I thought Italy's midfield just completely controlled action the last 90 minutes.
No doubt about that. And they dictated pace. They played the way they wanted to play. They enforced their style of play on the game. And Mancini deserves a lot of credit, because the substitutions that he brought on earlier, much earlier than England made any changes, all changed the dynamic on the pitch and changed how Italy were playing and ended up creating more chances with the guys that he brought on. So he deserves a lot of credit in that particular match he made changes first, and they worked out well because Southgate waited far too long to make any kind of changes to the formation. And it seemed like I'm not sure if he instructed the guys or what, but once they scored that early goal, they pretty much just sat back and played Jose ball, where they were behind like 9-10 men behind the ball, going through the motions. They had a couple of chances on the counter, but they couldn't. Even with Harry Kane up there, they didn't have any out ball. They couldn't get the ball from their end of the pitch and then keep it in Italy's half, because of the midfield that you mentioned. As soon as they got it anywhere to the midway of the pitch, it was a turnover, or the Italy midfielders and defenders were closing down the forwards of England and getting the ball back to their front men. So it was definitely some one-way, particularly in the second half. I think it was almost, for a good portion, it was 80% possession for Italy throughout the second half.
I thought if Chiesa doesn't get hurt and have to come off, Italy would have ended it in regulation.
He was definitely their most threatening player going forward. They couldn't really keep him.
They had no answer they had no answer for him really the entire match. Like every time he picked the ball up and got and started forward, like this is a goal, or he's going to create a chance
something for oh yeah. And even with Italy's dominance, even through the 30 minutes extra time, the match was still there for England to win. They had the advantage in the penalty shootout at one point. All they had to do was take care of business and score their goals in the penalty shootout, and we all saw what happened. It was very disheartening as an England fan. I'm not an English fan. I was pulling for England mostly because they had a lot of City players on the field. But as an Englishman, I would be very, very disheartened with the way things unfolded, and we can go over that too, because it was some interesting decisions by the manager.
I didn't like. So there was a couple of things I didn't like about what he did. First of all, I think we talk about the three people who missed the penalty.
Rashford.
Jadon Sancho,
Rashford was third. Yep.
Bukayo Saka. Sancho and Rashford. I don't think, if I am not mistaken, I think Sancho and Rashford, previous to that match, had played less than 20 minutes the entire tournament.
They had hardly played it at all through the group stages and everything. And in that particular match, he brought them on with maybe 30 seconds left. So
he brought them on in injury time to take penalties.
Yeah, so they couldn't even get a warm up in. They barely got a touch on the ball before you're asking them to take a pressure filled kick, even if they're allegedly your best penalty takers in practice and in their club form. That's just mind-boggling.
Then you have Saka, who's 19.
And hasn't played a whole lot of first-team football as a 19-year-old.
Has never taken a penalty at any level. Not Arsenal, not England under 23s. I think I even read he's never taken them in Arsenal's academy game. So this literally is the first penalty he's ever taken. And his first penalty is to keep the tournament alive in front of 60,000 people on home soil. Go take your first penalty, kid. Like, that is unbelievable. That is probably the most. We talk about pressure situations in sports. I can't think of other than a World Cup final. I can't think of any worse situation you could have put him in.
Standing up there by yourself in a giant stadium like Wembley with all them people, and there are hundreds of millions of people watching this around the world, and you're up there for your first in-game penalty attempt ever as a 19-year-old trying to do that. Like, you got Sterling on the bench, you got Grealish, you got John Stones, you got Kyle Walker, you got Luke Shaw, you got guys who have played in big games before, sitting
You
right
had
there.
Luke Shaw, who had a really good turn. You had Luke Shaw available, Stones available, Grealish, who had at least played a half an hour,
Mm-hmm.
Sterling, who played the entire 120, and it's like, so I didn't like his choice of penalty. But I will tell you this, Joe. I don't know about you. Now I can't think of a more pressurized moment than a penalty kick.
Any kind of penalty in hockey or in soccer, a penalty shot or kick is about as high as it gets.
And you watch so many guys in this tournament. Like we obviously all these guys, you're playing for your national club. You're at minimum a very good player to world class player. And you put them on that penalty spot, and it just
you could tell that's exactly what happened with Rashford and Sancho too. They took a bunch of little choppy steps running up to the ball. You could just see their wheels turning in their head as they were moving up to the ball, instead of just picking a spot, running up to it, putting your foot through it, and just taking it. They were overthinking it, and you could just see in their heads that mind going. And Rashford is just super unlucky because he waited to the last minute and he went the opposite direction of the goalie and just hit it a little bit too far wide, and it bounced off the post. But you could just tell that the pressure, the moment, they weren't warm. They had hardly any time on the pitch. And then ask them to do that after not playing at all in the tournament, like you mentioned, like that's just terrible decision making, in my opinion. And then I'm not sure how it works. Once you've picked your five, is there any changing that order, or can you?
So apparently, once you submit the five to the officials, you can't change it. So like he couldn't have said,
"Hey Sterling, go take that."
Jack Grealish, come take this penalty. That was it. So, but again, Italy, I believe though, was the deserving winner. I thought they played the best football overall over anybody in the tournament. So shout out to Italy. Shout out to Donnarumma. I think for Donnarumma, who's been such a hyped prospect for years.
For 6 years.
For years.
And he's only 22.
Right. It seems like he's been around a really long time. I think for him, huge moment in his career. Now he goes on to PSG. We're going to talk about PSG here in the transfer section. I think PSG is doing, as Will Germaldo will kind of like this one. They are doing very much Tampa Bay Buccaneer business over there in Paris. We're going to talk about what their transfers look like. But now, Joe, let's talk about Copa America, which less fanfare, literally, because there's less fans. But it was, again, the football wasn't always the greatest, but the drama and the unbelievable, you don't like to paint any culture with a brush, but boy, they can play act in South America. Oh my goodness. Let's talk about it. Copa America, Joe. Argentina wins it. Messi finally gets his first international trophy.
That bugaboo is now off of his record. People can't say that he hasn't performed well in international tournaments anymore. You would like a guy of his quality to have a little bit more than just one international trophy on his record, but he was the best player in the tournament. He scored the most goals. He created the most chances. And Argentina finally gets off the schneid, if you will, and gets to hoist a major trophy. Great final to match up with Brazil at the end. So you got the two big name clubs in South America matching up. That's what you kind of hope for down there, because they have a pretty nice rivalry, and that's the two best teams. So you can't ask for anything more than that when you're got a tournament going, that you got the two best teams matching up to see who wins. Brazil was missing Gabby Jesus because he went full Karate Kid in the previous matchup with a high boot to somebody and got a red card and was suspended.
Your man Gabby Machio.
Yeah, he lost his mind a little bit there on that one. So Brazil was missing my guy. But they still have a quality team. So happy that Messi got his international trophy. Had to wait a while, and I'm glad to see some of those guys who have been playing so well together for so long, and they've been in a lot of finals. It's not like they haven't performed well in tournaments. They've gotten to a couple of finals over the course of his career, just been come up short. So seeing that was really nice.
Yeah. I thought, again, I think for Messi, obviously, I don't know if this tournament, like he's done so many wonderful things in his career. Like he's got all the numbers, he's got all the trophies now. So I know typical football Twitter. Oh, does this make him the greatest of all time? No. I think to me, if you already thought he was the greatest of all time, I don't think this significantly changes that. I think he already was in the argument for it. I don't think this pushes, but I think it just, as you said, completes the resume. Now, the guy I think now, and I hate to be very hot take-ish, but I think now for Neymar, the Champions League now becomes really important. Now, he's won this before with Barcelona, but now, as somebody pointed out, 2014 World Cup, the disaster that was the 7-1 versus Germany.
Yep.
He didn't play in it, but it was Brazil, home soil, etc. They won the Copa America 2 years ago without Neymar. And of course, he's now gone to Paris Saint-Germain. He's not won the Champions League. They brought him there to be the Champions League piece. That hasn't happened. Without being too hot takers, man, I think this season is so important for Neymar coming up. I think you hate to put this on this Champions League trophy, which Joe, the Champions League is almost a lottery at some point. But I think for Neymar, man, I think he's got to get something. He's got to, because I think his reputation, probably undeservedly, is not kind of taking a hit. I thought he was great in the final.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was unstoppable. But for Neymar, what do you think is now kind of for Neymar now going into this season?
Well, he's kind of Mbappe is kind of the big name at PSG that gets a lot of the attention. He's on the FIFA cover 2 years in a row, but Neymar is still kind of like their guy, and he kind of was in Messi's and Suarez's shadow at Barca when they were winning stuff. So for him to be the guy and lead a team to a major trophy, I think is definitely something he would like to have on his resume, because he's got all the stats. He's up there with all the South American goal scoring leaders in international competitions as well. So I mean, he's a fantastic player. Does he flop a lot? Absolutely. Does his antics kind of hurt his reputation with a lot of fans on the pitch? For sure. Some of it is maybe undeserving, depending on how you want to look at it. I know he is fouled quite frequently.
He gets fouled a lot.
So that part I get. There are times where he makes a lot out of those fouls that might be a little extra in some people's eyes. But there's no denying how talented the guy is. And with PSG, if they don't do something big this year and win a title in the Champions League, we have to consider what's going to happen there, because Mbappe has already been on the transfer block, and the rumor mills with him has been going off all summer. And
yeah, we're going to talk about that here shortly. Yep.
For sure. So, like, what do they do if they don't win it again? Are they going to keep trying to run it back? Is Mbappe going to ask out? What does Neymar do at that point? Does he try to go back to Barcelona? Does he stick it out with PSG? Like, there's a lot that could happen depending on in the next year or so with Mr. Neymar.
I think, Joe, and we'll talk about this closer to the season starts. I think, to me, this season is the last stand for PSG.
That's currently constructed.
as currently constructed. I think they might be able to hold on Mbappe one more season. Well, first of all, I think Mbappe can leave on a free
Yeah,
next season.
I think his contract is up pretty soon.
Right. So I think he leaves on a free. So I think if they don't sell him, which I think if they're not going to sell Mbappe, you're saying, okay, this is the last ride. If we don't win the Champions League this year, this is over. And the moves that PSG are making say that they are really in this to win it.
They're going all in.
They've signed Donnarumma. They've signed Sergio Ramos. Like, you definitely don't bring in Sergio Ramos just to win the French league title. Like, you are bringing Sergio Ramos in there for the Champions League.
Yep.
The rumor mill is kind of swirled around Paul Pogba. In PSG has kind of been a new one that has kind of swirled around recently. So
PSG, they signed Hakimi as well. So they already have splashed a lot of cash as is. So they're making moves. They're not waiting around for these big tournaments to be over to do their business. They're getting their work in early, and it definitely seems like with the moves that they're making, they're all for a win now approach. So
let's get into some of the transfer stuff. We talked about Mbappe. You know, his name, I think, is going to kind of continue to be on the surface. Erling Haaland. The latest is that now it's you tell me what you've heard. The one I've heard recently is he's going to stay for the year but then his release clause next summer is really low.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's an easier deal to make for him. It's an easier deal to make for clubs interested in him. So I think Dortmund is kind of in an interesting position, Joe, and I want to get your opinion on this. If you are Dortmund, do you almost have to offer him up, knowing that you're probably going to get half next summer if you don't? Or do you just say, hey, we will sit on this kid for another year and we'll take the loss? What do you kind of, if you're in Dortmund, how do you play this?
That's such a difficult situation because they've already sold Jadon Sancho to Manchester United for a very large sum. So they've already cashed in quite a bit already. And if we're talking a business sense, that makes way more sense to sell him now and get as much as you possibly can before you lose him for, like you said, about half of what you could get him for this year. But at the same time, you have made the Champions League. You still have a rabid fan base that wants to see them compete and win. And if you sell Haaland right now this year, depending on when those funds from those two sales would come about and who is available at the time, because other teams are going to be looking for those same positions. They're going to be looking for wingers. They're going to be looking for strikers. And if you're not able to pull in, use that money to bring in some quality replacements, they already struggled in the Bundesliga last year, even with both of those players. So you have to find that balance between, I'm trying to make some money, more money than I probably would, because between those two sales, they could completely change that team around. But at the same time, you have to still field a competitive side,
right,
to satisfy your fans.
Right. And I think if you look at Dortmund, Joe, you sold Sancho. Usman and Dembele, you sold for big money. Christian Pulisic, you sold for big money. Like, they made a ton of money, but at what point is it like, okay, we have to start building a team instead of just continuing to just turn all these young players over?
Exactly. So that's the balancing act, I guess, you got to weigh. So if you're them, maybe you hang on to Haaland one more year and try to use the funds from Sancho to pull in some more young talent. Which, like you said, at some point, they've made the Champions League final back in 13 or 14.
Right.
But since then, they really haven't come close. So it seems like are we really going to push for Champions League and German dominance? Or are we just going to keep the model that we're doing where we're making a profit and developing a lot of young talent, but then not really building a sustainable team because all their young guys that they end up getting, they seem to ship out. Marco Reus, I think, is the only guy that's really been there for this entire run. He's been there for a while, but most of the guys, they've been successful with a lot of turnover in their roster. So it's a very interesting case.
And we talk about transfer, and a team usually we would be hearing about is Barcelona, but apparently Barcelona is broke, and not like, oh, they can't spend as much, broke. Like they are legitimately broke, like borderline bankrupt. And I read earlier they can't even sign Messi back right now.
Nope, they can't sign him to a contract because of the La Liga's salary cap that they now have. So in most soccer leagues, there is no salary cap. It's like baseball. You can have as much payroll on your roster that you can carry, but La Liga has instituted a salary cap on the salaries of the guys that you have registered for your team. So they have signed, I think, 4 guys on free transfers. So they haven't spent any money on these 4 new guys. But I think Eric Garcia and Sergio Aguero haven't even been registered on the team yet because they're Barcelona's wage bill last year, I think, was over $600 million. And the salary cap in La Liga is like 330. So they still have a lot of work to do just to get underneath before they can even sign and register officially their new players and Messi. So that's why we haven't seen a new contract for Messi at Barcelona. He's probably not going anywhere. Just because he's a free agent now doesn't necessarily mean he's really moving. It just means that Barcelona has some financial work to do before they can actually announce a contract with him.
And this will be interesting. And I know, Joe, you rightfully, I'm on your side on this, have had issues with UEFA and Man City for as long as I've known you. I think this is going to be the test case now for, not that we don't know this is corrupt, but we're talking about Barcelona is like, you take away Manchester United and Madrid, you are talking about probably the 3rd most popular club in the entire world. I think they're going to get bailed out. I think there's a bailout. I think they're going to look at that and they're going to say, that is too big a club to be in that much trouble. If we let Barcelona collapse, La Liga essentially collapses because it's Madrid and it's Barcelona. I mean, Atletico won the title, but when we talk about stars and the power of the club, it's those 2.
For sure.
I think they're going to get bailed out. And it's going to be corrupt. It's going to be super suspect and super shady how it happened. Mm-hmm. I think Barcelona will get bailed out somehow.
That, like you said, and there's still them and I guess Juventus and Real Madrid are still pushing forward. Like the Super League thing is still going to happen with them 3 clubs and whoever they'll say decide to get in there. So there was still talk recently of UEFA like trying to play hardball with those 3 clubs again and say they won't be able to participate this coming year. So it's just a lot of drama going on over in Spain for sure with those clubs because having that much of a discrepancy in your payroll and what you need to get down to and still be able to sign these guys that you've agreed to contract or at least agreed to terms with already. Like that's just.
They are. And I know my man Jamaldo, we're going to bring Jamaldo on camera here in a couple of minutes. Jamaldo, if you hear us, get ready to unmute yourself and come on camera. We were talking about like in the NFL, we don't make this too NFL football, but like the New Orleans Saints being like $40-50 million over the cap at one point.
Eagles too.
Barcelona is 5 times that amount over the cap. They are like an entire salary cap over the cap. So how they resolve this, I don't know. But I feel like they're going to do the Barcelona name will get them out of there. I think if it was anybody else, they'd be in trouble.
For sure. If it any other club in Spain besides Barca or Real Madrid, they would be sorry for you. Yeah. We can do without you. But La Liga is so dependent on those two big time clubs for commercial sales and TV viewership and everything that they can't have those two clubs being either in trouble like this or underperforming or not have the star power that they're accustomed to have on the field, because that would hurt everybody's bottom line.
Because that was the one thing I was reading. I'm like, well, they were saying, well, they could release a bunch of contracts and play youth players instead. And I'm like, they're not. Barcelona is going to be a Champions League team this season. They are not putting Barcelona in the Champions League with a bunch of under 23s.
No,
they're not doing it. So I think
they'll sell just enough of their players and finagle the terms of the contract where the wording is just such where they'll be able to get all these dudes under contract and under their La Liga salary cap, which is a whole other story. Because I'm not sure why I know that league is run a little bit different than others, but it seems like that league is a bit of a mess right now.
Yeah, actually it is. Now let's talk. I want to check in with you, Joe. Your club is in great shape, on and off the pitch. So
this is true.
The name that comes up, the natural name is Harry Kane. We know Spurs are a complete mess. Harry Kane has pretty much has done everything. He's done as much as you can do without actually handing in a transfer request. Do you still? I know we kind of. You said you weren't really sure based on City's spending policy if they would go all in on Harry Kane. You think? Do you still feel that way?
Between the rumors of our interest in Harry Kane and Jack Grealish, it seems like, if you believe the media, that they're willing to break their usual habits and try to sign both of these players. I don't think we sign both, because that's pretty much $200 million plus for those two players, and that would be absurd in my opinion. If you listen to Pep, he just came on and said, at the current prices that strikers are being listed at, we can't afford that, and we're not spending that. Everybody knows that Manchester City has the money if they chose to.
You're right.
So we could, if they really wanted to. Do they want to spend that much money? No. And I don't think they're going to drop 150 million that it would take to, if you're listening to the Tottenham side, that's pretty much the starting point. It seems like Levy, who's their owner, is playing hardball and said he's not going anywhere. He's got a bunch of years left on his contract. We're not selling him. That's pretty much been the party line at Tottenham. So I really would not. I would rather see that money spread out with some younger talent and continue the success that we've had with getting really good guys that are in their lower 20s for around 40-50 mil.
And the guys like Rodgers and the Rodgers of the world, and
so, go that route and just get a team full of quality pieces instead of having one guy that's cost us an absurd amount. The only person that I would want them to spend that kind of money on would be Haaland, because I think he's a generational type talent. And with Harry Kane, he's 28, I think, So you're getting him in his prime for a couple of seasons. Haaland is 20, so you would hope that you're going to sign him for many years to come, instead of having him a Harry Kane who's going to be hopefully at his peak for at least another 2 or 3 years. So for the Haaland piece, because I know you had brought him up earlier, I've seen Chelsea and City being linked still to dropping a $100 million type bid, but I've also seen that Dortmund doesn't want to sell. So we shall see. I know by the time we have our next show in about a week, we might have some updates, because really for our newly initiated, after these big tournaments like the Copa and the Euro get done, that's usually when a lot of the transfer deals start happening and a lot of the talks heat up, because a lot of the players that are in the tournaments are the ones that are going to be talked about being wanted by other clubs. So they usually like to let those things play its course before some of the big news drops. So in the next week or two, we should probably start seeing a lot more in the transfer news department.
So let me ask you this. Then we're gonna go to we're gonna talk a little bit of Arsenal, just for the banter.
Absolutely.
If you were to say, okay, we're not gonna pay for both, but we are gonna do one big ticket, would you prefer it to be Kane or would you prefer it to be Grealish? I kind of think I know the answer, but I want to hear it anyway.
It's tough because they're both really good players. They're not my favorite guys in the world.
That's where I was going.
They're not. I like Harry Kane. I don't love Harry Kane. Grealish annoys me, but I think his fit would be a little bit better for our team going forward. He can play a variety of roles a little bit, and it really depends, I guess. If Haaland doesn't go anywhere this year, and if we do go the Harry Kane route, we're not getting Haaland. But if we go Grealish this year and Haaland stays at Dortmund, that opens up the possibility of Erling next summer. So if we're going for one, as crazy to think this or say this, but I think I would prefer Jack Grealish over Harry Kane right now.
If you saying that is interesting, not because I know kind of off camera, you and Jack Grealish ain't really your guy.
Not at the prices that he's been quoted at, for sure.
Right, the price tag I think is interesting, but if they were to get Grealish, to me, what that says is you have to really, really believe deeply in Gabriel Jesus. Unless we're going to line up six attacking unless we're just going to line up six midfielders every week.
Front three of all them dudes. The name that really is getting brought up as a potential position switch to a full-blown number 9 striker is Ferran Torres. Because he played that role for a little while in the mid part of the season and performed well and scored a lot of goals. He played winger this Euros for Spain. He actually got a lot of run.
I thought he was more a wide player.
He is. They think that some of his qualities might translate to a more central role. So his name has been kind of brought up as a potential move to a striker position, which would kind of keep the wing spots open for the likes of Grealish and Sterling and Mahrez. And that's still a logjam of players, because you still on contract are Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden's got to find some space. So there's just so many guys.
Silva, Foden, Sterling, Mahrez, Torres. And then if you bring in Grealish, that's basic. They're not six of the same, but you're six attacking midfield / wide players, and you don't have you're basically saying we're almost going to play without our quote unquote real striker for the entire year, which would be, if anybody can pull this off, it's Pep Belichick.
Right.
But to play almost an entire season with no strikers would be
Like full blown, yeah. Because they've been linked with a couple other lesser known strikers that wouldn't cost nearly as much.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they would still be looking, if they go Grealish, I think they'd be looking at some a cheaper move. One of the names I saw brought up several times was I think it's Andre Silva. He's a Portugal striker.
Okay,
I think
yeah, I
he
see. I
played
see him.
he
Mm-hmm.
plays over in Germany. So they've been kind of linked with him. He scored like 20 something goals in the Bundesliga this past year. So there are other options to fill that role instead of having a big name like a
I
Harry
tell you,
Kane or a Haaland. But
I tell you what, if you all get Grealish, you and I could play up front because with all that attacking around it, if you're the striker, just go stand in the penalty box and just wait for the ball to come to you because it'll be there.
it'll eventually be there.
Yeah, just go 12 yards from the goal, stand in the middle, and just wait. You and I
It'll
could
find
play.
you.
Me and you and Joe get 10 goals apiece now. I think with if y'all get Grealish with all that attacking midfield, yeah, you and I get 10 goals easily.
And they need height. And I'm 6'7", so I got some headers for him
Hey,
to send that cross in.
ship it up to my man Joe in the box. It's over with.
We good.
So before we get out of here, my club Arsenal has
Started off the friendly tour today, didn't we? If y'all can tell by his face already, you probably know the outcome.
I am. You know what? People who know me in real life know I don't get caught up in anything preseason when it comes to sports in general. I'm not bothered by the result. I am really bothered though by the lack of activity at Arsenal. We talk about this shows you how our two clubs are so on different levels. You're talking about we're gonna bring in a Grealish, Haaland, Kane, Andre Silva. Me personally is more concerned about getting rid of people. Like Saeed Kolasinac played today. Willian played today. Like, so the reason we're talking about Arsenal is that Arsenal is going to be the subject of this season of All or Nothing. For those of you who have Amazon Prime or another hookup, it's basically it's basically European football's version of Hard Knocks. And Arsenal is going to be the subject. Is going to be the subject of All or Nothing. I think it's going to actually be really good because Arsenal is a club that is in a really big state of turmoil. Turmoil makes for good documentaries. So if you want, good and bad for me, because I think there's going to be some not necessarily embarrassing moments, but you're going to kind of see why Arsenal is in the spot that they are. I definitely recommend tuning in. And I think especially go ahead, Joe.
They're great documentaries, regardless of whether you are knowledgeable about the sport or know much about the team itself. They do a great job narrating what's going on and giving you kind of a rundown for people who don't know as much about it. So they're great watches, whether you're someone who've been following the team like Ronnie does, or someone who's a casual fan, or somebody who just loves soccer or just getting into it. Great watches, because they have a couple of other ones already that they've done that are worth checking out.
Yeah, so for our newly initiated folks like Germaldo, our man Trav, our man MJ, shout out to them. Even if you know nothing about the sport, I would definitely recommend watching it. And it will honestly I'm not saying it's going to get you into the sport, but it gives you more the inside of how these things happen, more than kind of what we can give. You see it from an actual club. So Arsenal, All or Nothing. I think it's gonna be good. I don't know how good our season's gonna be. I think our documentary will be very good. So I think next week we're gonna be back. Hopefully, transfer news will be more There'll be more concrete transfer news. I think we're going to start to kind of get into some of the previews of this season. Obviously, a little bit more difficult to do with the transfer news being the way it is. But I think we are going to kind of get into what to expect as of this weekend. We are 4 weeks away from the opening of the Premier League season as of this weekend.
And the Community Shield between for the Premier League anyway, with City and Leicester. So we're coming up quick.
It's coming up very quick. So we might get into some previews next week. We'll definitely get our main man Zach, get his take. So we let him gloat a little bit on his Italy pick in the Euros. Germaldo, if you are there, because Germaldo always takes us out of here. Germaldo, come on camera real quick, brother, for just a hot second. So now, Germ, this is your first full season of football coming up. Your first full, we've given you the formations, we've talked about transfer, we've done all of that. Now you get to actually follow this thing for real. How you feel about it, man? Just now that you kind of been indoctrinated.
It is one of those situations where seeing how football, we'll call it, how football actually works, and seeing all of the back end, the stuff that goes on, like when we did the transfer show last time, it's incredible to see that every year. My favorite part is the free agency every year. That's my favorite part.
Right.
Because if you got the dollars, going to spend them.
Yeah.
But I thought that part was the most interesting. But I think overall, man, soccer is a very intriguing sport in itself. It's a lot like the other sports that we like. You know what I'm saying? And it's very, very, very detail oriented, just like other sports as well. People just don't understand it, and they just look at it and say, oh, they're just running up and down, and they don't have any strategy or any type of thing. No, it's actually stuff that goes into this game that y'all have to know about. Understanding what each position does. We don't have positionless soccer. You know what I'm saying?
Joe's club is as close to positionless soccer as you're gonna get. Like,
so it's like, with that being said, like, it's just a dope sport for everybody to check out. I encourage people, if you don't watch soccer, watch it. Watch a game. Watch some of the things that they're doing. Watch how some teams, Man City and Chelsea are two teams, they play eerily similar, which is why them being in the Champions League matchup was so interesting, because they both keep the ball away from people. So you're looking at that. Teams like to keep the ball away, and then you look at, this is when you get those guys like Mbappe and those type of guys that are like super elite at what they do. And man, look, the sport it's worth watching, man. That's all
absolutely.
I can say.
I can't wait till we get to about like 2-3 months in, and like Germ has like really got to like really watch this now that he's really knows what's happening. I'm telling you, German's gonna end up being a guest. He's behind the camera now. By about the middle of November, German's gonna be on camera with Stoppage Time. We gonna have 3 months in. I'm giving it 3 months before Germ is an on-camera guest on the show. With that being said, Stoppage Time FC, Tuesday night we'll be back. Shout out Joe, shout out Zach, Germ behind the camera. He will be on camera soon. This is Stoppage Time FC, signing out.